Hey friends, Sleepy here, and welcome to a brand new episode of my Community Questions series. We are now on to episode number 19. Just want to remind everyone I will be holding a contest at the end of this question series, and for every question that you participate in, you will get entries into that contest. And you can get up to 2 entries per video by doing a video response answering the question and also leaving a comment answering the question. Of course, you can do one or the other, you don't have to do both, but if you do both, you'll get 2 entries for each video you do that into the contest. So as of right now, if you do all 19 questions, that's 19 entries you'll have into the contest. And I do plan to have several different winners because I do want to have a couple people win it, not just one person. So keep an eye out for that towards the end of this series. Of course, if you guys have missed any of my previous 18 questions, you can go back at any time and answer them. I always love reading your guys' comments, watching your videos. It's been really fun having this series. I love getting different people's perspectives, because everybody collects a little bit differently, everybody games a little bit differently, and it's just nice to see different perspectives, see different collections, different ways people collect over others, different kind of games we all play and stuff, and it's just fun to interact with you guys, so I've been having a blast with this series. So for number 19 here, this is actually from a suggestion from JRman331, and he suggested I talk about this topic, and I really liked it. I thought it was a great question to ask. And so his question was that I'm going to ask you guys is, what made you guys buy certain consoles? What got you into certain consoles that you bought? What made you guys had the decision that you wanted to buy the console? And I thought, this is definitely a great question to get some great discussions going on the different consoles. Of course, you don't have to talk about every single console that's out, but if you want to pick a few to talk about, like what I'm going to talk about a couple of them here today, what got me into buying them, and that's what I want to know. What made you buy? Like, you got a Super Nintendo, what made you want to get that? Or you got the Xbox One, what made you want to buy that console? So that's the question for episode 19 here. And for me, I'm going to start off with, obviously, number one, I've talked about this more than once, is the original Nintendo. Now, that is actually the console that got me into gaming, and the Mario Brothers in particular. Mario is what got me into games, and that was because my cousin used to babysit myself and my brother when we were younger, and we used to, and my cousins too. She had younger cousins, her sisters that were younger than her, so she used to babysit us, and her boyfriend actually had a Nintendo in their apartment hooked up with the Mario Brothers and the Duck Hunt and some other different games, and that's how I first got exposed to gaming, was there. And we used to play that when she would watch us, and we just loved it. I just fell in love with it, and I was just like, oh, this is so cool, I want to play. I'm just 4 years old, 5 years old then playing it, and it just was so cool. It just blew your little mind away playing it. And so eventually, my parents bought us our own Nintendo because we found out how much we loved it, and, talked to my cousin about it, oh yeah, Jeremy, Mike, they love that Nintendo, you should get them one. And so we ended up getting one of those. And then, we kept up on gaming over the years, and like when the Super Nintendo came out, it was like, it's just so much better than the regular Nintendo. You had the commercials on TV, and Nintendo Power is out there, and other gaming magazines and stuff, and friends, and telling you, wow, you got to get this 16-bit console. So it's, it's just awesome. It's just amazing. Such an upgrade to you. You got to get it. It's just better. Got better games, Mom and Dad. And we, eventually convinced our parents to get us the Super Nintendo because it was, a better console. But I also did get a Sega Genesis as well, and that was just because, again, we had a friend who had a Sega Genesis that I played at his house, and it was just cool. Like, I had never played this Genesis console. It's kind of just like the Super Nintendo, and so I've never been one that's been into the fanboy wars where I only like a certain console. I've always been this way, where I just love games. I'm a gamer. I just love games. I don't care what the console is. I like Super Nintendo and I like Sega Genesis. So I actually got to have both. And of course, not everybody was lucky enough to be able to afford stuff like this. But my parents and I were able to get a Sega Genesis used at a game store in Arizona when I used to live there. And we got a really good deal on it. And then one that I really remember that we really got hooked onto and wanted to buy was the Nintendo 64. And it was so freaking hyped up with the commercials. Of course, it was sold out that first year, and I really wanted one. And we weren't able to get it because literally nobody had one. But this video store called Video Hut that I used to rent from a little mom and pop video store. You could actually rent the console, and you got 2 games for $10, and you got to have it. I think it was like 3 or 4 days total. Usually we'd rent it on Friday, and my mom and dad would return it either Monday or Tuesday. And we rented that Nintendo 64 a lot, and rented Mario 64. Like, it was just amazing. Like, just playing that game for the first time in like 3D. You're just like, whoa, wow, this is just freaking amazing. It's awesome. This Mario 64 is just great. Like, I had never seen 3D graphics like that at the time, and it just blew away in my mind. And so then eventually I did get the Nintendo 64 that came with that cool atomic purple controller for Christmas one year from my parents, and it had Mario 64 packed in it, and then they got me a couple other games, which I actually still have in my collection today. I actually still have the box somewhere up here top. It's actually over there. I actually still have the box for it. Don't have any of the styrofoam or anything, but I've saved that box over the years. It was just so cool, like having the graphical upgrade of that. And then some other ones I can remember, like when we finally got a PlayStation 1. The reason I got that was because my buddy Bobby, that I used to go to his house and hang out, he had a neighbor, which I don't remember the guy's name now, who was older than us, but he had a PlayStation 1, and that was like the cool kids console, and the cool people, the older guys, teenagers and that stuff. Older people were the ones that really loved the PlayStation. That was a system to play for, now. At that time, you're like, oh, you got to play PlayStation, that's awesome. And so he had some different games over there that we got to check out that were just really awesome games, and really got me hooked into a PlayStation. And then that's when I eventually was able to get a PlayStation 1 console. And it was just something I just loved. Like, it just was another one that just blew your mind away. Oh, it's cool, man. These games are on CDs now. Remember they used to be on cartridges, but now they're CD-based games. And so I really liked that console as well. And then, of course, then we moved. And then when we moved to where we are now, the PlayStation 2 was coming out. And I remember we actually had one pre-ordered and secured, but we never did end up picking it up, and I don't remember the exact reason why, but again, it was one of those, it was all hyped up, everyone's talking about, PlayStation 2, man, it's so awesome, you love the first PlayStation, you're gonna love PlayStation 2, you have got to get it. And so eventually we did get it, and one of the first games we got for that was when we were getting Grand Theft Auto 3. I remember I loved Silent Hill 2 on it. I mean, it looked amazing. Hell, they still look pretty damn good today. If you get the component cables played on your HD TV, like some of those games on PlayStation 2 do hold up pretty well today, and had some very memorable games. And so again, I have always just loved gaming, and I liked upgrading with gaming as an upgrade. I've always loved it. I didn't take any breaks. I know some people, I got into school and, I stopped into girls or whatever. I stopped playing games for 10 years or something. Me, I've always collected them my whole life, and I've just loved them, and I've always wanted to upgrade. So every time there was a new console coming out, I got excited about it. Like, oh, this is cool. We're going to have a new console soon. I got to get it. I got to get the new one. And now one console, which is my absolute favorite, I've talked about this story before, which I did not actually like when it first launched, was the original Xbox, which is now my favorite console. But the time this launched, I did not like it. I thought it was stupid. I liked PlayStation 2 at the time. I really didn't care about Microsoft stuff, because I'm like, oh, well, it's Microsoft. They make stupid card games, casino games, make stupid stuff for the computer. What do they know about making consoles? It's probably a shit console. And so I hated it for quite a while, and I had a buddy who had it, and he kept bugging me, you gotta play Halo. No, I'm not playing Halo. You gotta play Halo. You gotta play Halo. And then finally I broke down and was like, dude, if I freaking play this damn Halo game, but then you leave me alone. He's like, yeah, dude, once you play it, you'll be hooked. And of course I play it, and I freaking got hooked on it and just loved it and just played it like crazy. And then eventually I had to go out and get myself my own original Xbox, and over the years this has become my absolute favorite console of all time. And I went the crazy route and collected an entire North American original Xbox set. Every game released for the original Xbox here in North America I own, and tons of variants and stuff, just a crazy collection. But it's absolutely my favorite console. Just it was so cool because this had Xbox Live, which was great, so you could play with people around the world. You could download content for your games. It had a hard drive, so you didn't have to worry about memory cards anymore. You did have to buy a DVD playback kit. which is another reason why I love the PlayStation 2 was that was like the first DVD player for a lot of people. And it's actually one way how I sold my parents on it was, like, hey, you guys could use this for DVDs too, because DVDs were just coming out at the time. And of course, they're freaking like 30, 40, and $50 a movie. But it was just really cool because you could still, you could rent them at like Blockbuster and Hollywood Video and other mom and pop places. But that was one way I sold, same with this thing, you could play DVDs on it. And that was such a selling point for these consoles because it's not like today where, everything plays DVDs and they were easy to get. DVD players were expensive. And so I was able to get, a console and a DVD player to play. So, that was something that's really cool and innovative at the time. Of course, the Xbox Live and everything just was amazing on this console. And I just absolutely loved it. I'm so glad I decided to give it a chance because who knows where I'd be in gaming today if I didn't finally cave into my buddy bugging me to play Halo. It might not have become my favorite console of all time, which it is. And then we have, after the original Xbox, I loved it. I actually pre-ordered my Xbox 360 in 2005 and I got that on launch. And they only had, I think, 20 consoles total. I think it was like 15 of the one that came with a 20 gig hard drive, and then the core console didn't come with it. I think they had like 5 of those, and they had pizza there available. They had a midnight launch for it, pop prizes and stuff, and literally like only 5 people, myself included, showed up for it because the original Xbox was a failure as far as consoles go. It wasn't successful. Sony's PS2 just destroyed it. So, you didn't have a lot of buzz for Xbox 360 at launch. And of course, then, we have obviously the Red Ring of Death and all that kind of stuff didn't help. But at least at the GameStop, we didn't have a ton of people showed up for a thing. So I was guaranteed one. And I got that. And I got to take home a couple pizzas. And the first game I actually bought for that, actually bought it a week before, was the Need for Speed Most Wanted. It actually came out, or at least a week before the console came out. And I knew I wanted to get a game that I could play. And that's something that I would, I could play more than, just a few minutes, something I know I'd enjoy. And so I got that game. Like, yeah, I love racing games. That'll be cool. And then I did rent some games. I rented that Perfect Dark Zero, but I wasn't a huge fan of it. And then I also rented that Call of Duty 2, though. That game was just freaking amazing and awesome with the throwing the smoke. You never had it rendered like that, and it just looks so realistic. That's what made me fall in love with the Call of Duty series on consoles, was Call of Duty 2 on Xbox 360. It was just an awesome game. And I eventually did go through and beat that game on Veteran, which was not easy. Let me tell you, that was freaking tough. But, that 360 was just, was just so cool because the graphics are updated, and it's got a bigger hard drive and it's going to have better Xbox Live and stuff. And so I was hyped for it and I pre-ordered it and picked it up on day one. And that is another one of my favorite consoles of all time. I've got over 500 titles for that. I have beat so many games, put thousands of hours into that console, and I absolutely loved it. Now, when that came out, I just wasn't too big on getting a PlayStation 3 because I was like, I'm only going to support one of them, not both of them, because I'm not spending the money to. PS3 was like $600 when it launched and $500, where the Xbox 360 was $300 and $400. So, it was way too expensive buying a PS3 versus, the Xbox 360. So I never actually bought a PS3 until within the last 10 years. I remember I bought one used at a game store just because I wanted to start getting into PS3 gaming. Well, then we get into when Xbox One and PS4 are coming out. And at that time, again, I almost left Microsoft because of their DRM bullshit. They talked about E3. I'm like, man, it's going to be the first time I don't get an Xbox console. I'm going to have to go with Sony and PS4 because I'm not doing that digital DRM horse shit that they were putting. And then, they did a complete 180 and changed that. And then I ended up keeping my pre-order for my Xbox One. And I picked that day one edition up at Walmart. I pre-ordered it there and paid on it over time until we finally paid it off, and I picked that up and I was really, really excited for it. I was hyped again, another console, man, it's even better than the 360. The graphics are getting so amazing, and I was hyped to pick that up at Walmart. Now, my brother bought the PlayStation 4, so I figured that way, we both had consoles, and we said, we told each other, hey, if you want to borrow my console, you can, I'll borrow yours, and we did swap a few times, to check out different consoles and play them. And so when I had my Xbox One, and when that launched, I just really loved it. It was really cool. I'm glad that I gave it a chance, and it was just the games were just so much better than they were on the 360. They just looked really amazing. Now, when they did started doing the revisions and stuff, the Xbox S and Xbox One X, I wasn't like that hyped about getting them. I did end up getting both of them because I bought them from my brother, who sold them to me for like $100 each. Just a hell of a deal. You're not going to get that family deal and anybody else at a used game store or anywhere. But that's why I acquired that, and then I bought his PS4. So again, like I had the Xbox One. I really didn't need the PS4, but it was one of those I was going to get down the line when it got cheaper because I did want to get the exclusives for it. And so I bought a PlayStation 4, his used one, and then I'm going to be buying his PS4 Pro here once he can find a PS5, which I've actually been trying to help him find one here locally. He's like, if you find one locally, dude, just buy it, pick it up for me, and I'll PayPal you the money, and then I'll come pick it up when I come to visit you guys, because he really wants to get a PS5 so he can play PS4 games that are higher, upscale and all that, and then be able to play the new PS5 game, because he's mostly big into PC gaming now. He has an amazing, really expensive gaming PC, so he can play at all the ultra max settings, and that's why he's like, I don't need an Xbox One, because all the games are released on the Windows computer. You get both versions, so why the hell would I need the Xbox Series X when I can play them on the PC with better graphics? So that's why he plays that, and there's a lot of Sony games you can't play on the computer, so that's the only reason he's getting it. And he also has a Nintendo Switch. I own a Nintendo Switch, but that's another one I wasn't really hyped for. I just didn't really care about it, so I ended up buying that one, down the road when I had money. Handhelds, I never ever did pre-order them, but I was absolutely amazed by them. Like the original Game Boy at that time, it just blew your mind away. Wow, I can play mobile games, because I was used to those Tiger Electronic handhelds. And if you guys had checked out my recent handheld collection, I talked about the different ones I upgraded through the years, but I never did pre-order any of those or pick them up on day one. I always got them later on, once they were out, but I still picked them up because there was a nice upgrade over the previous generation. Like the Game Boy Advance to the Game Boy was just, wow, it's got color and stuff. And then when they got the ones with lighted screen, then the DS came out, and you got two screens, and then the 3DS came out, and you got 3D with two screens. Like, it just was a great graphical upgrade, and it's just something I really enjoyed. And so that gives you guys a little idea of why I got some of these consoles. Just I loved games, and I grew up with them, and I just loved the overall changes, how the advancement in technology just kept getting better and better. And like now, here we are in 9th gen, and I don't have that same excitement that I had in the past, only because, the graphics got to a point where they can only get so good. And now that we're at that point with the 9th gen and 8th gen, I mean, yeah, I see some really good games, but we're still not at that point where the Series X games blow the Xbox One games completely out of the water, because they're still releasing games for the Xbox One, for the PS4, and they're just making ports over to the PS5, so they're not truly like next gen games. And then at this point, it's kind of like my brother said, if you want to play the best graphic game in the world, you need to get yourself a nice, expensive gaming PC, and then you can see what ultra max settings are like that you aren't going to get on a Series X or a PS5. Don't even touch some of these crazy expensive gaming PCs, which I kind of agree with him. And then, of course, as we're in the digital age now, and the online and everything's shifting focus, the industry itself is changing, and it's kind of leaving me behind. I'm a physical guy. I love my big physical collection, having it here when I can play it, updates and all that stuff we have nowadays, day one patches and stuff in order to even play these games. This kind of turns you off from it and makes you want to look to the past, which a lot of people have. And that's why retro gaming is so popular nowadays. Is like the trends in today's gaming and modern stuff has kind of made people like, yeah, remember how awesome it used to be? You used to take a game home, pop it in, you can just play and have fun. You don't got to sit through 5 hours of installing and updating and shit. Like, hell, I might as well get a PC if I'm going to deal with this crap. And even then, it installs quicker and faster on PC. So, it just kind of has turned me off to where has always been excited, when I got introduced to that Nintendo. And then, Super Nintendo's coming out, and Sega Genesis. And then, PlayStation 1 and PlayStation 2, Xbox 360. Here's one I didn't talk about that I loved, was the Sega Dreamcast. That's another console that I remember coming out. It was $200. I was hyped for that, hearing about all the, the 99.99, all the crazy Sega commercials on TV. The magazines are just hyping it up. And my brother and I went to KB Toys and we would go there all the time at the mall and play their demo unit. And they had all the different launch games, the Mortal Kombat Gold and Sonic Adventure and Tokyo Extreme Racer, and it was just so cool playing this new console. It's just so much better than the PlayStation 1 and Nintendo 64. The graphics were just amazing, the games were amazing, and we just kept bugging my dad till he eventually bought us one. But then he didn't buy us a game though, because he's like, oh, I got you guys a thing, and it came with a demo disc, and my brother and I must have played that freaking thing like a million times, and then we would go rent games from the Hollywood video store. And I remember we bugged my dad so much, damn much, he's like, we kept bugging him to go, and he's like, oh, I buy you a game, you guys leave me alone. And so we were like, yeah, so he bought us a Sonic Adventure game for it. And it just was awesome. That was another console that I love. I wish I could have got it on launch day, but, we didn't. But eventually my parents did get us a little bit after it had released. And so for me, I've just have loved games. I've just loved the different consoles. I've been hyped for most of them. It just was cool seeing the upgrade, and I got to upgrade with them as I got older. I just had loved gaming forever. I still love gaming today. I'm not as excited, for these 9th gen consoles. I mean, I think they're cool. They definitely have some games out there. I just don't like how they have some of the DRM in there, and the Sony has with their CMOS battery. And if it goes dead and you can't play games and stuff, and if you can't connect to the servers, that kind of just turns me off to this newer gaming. But the stuff from the past, man, that I collected, the old stuff here, and what I'm currently playing, Xbox One and PS4 and Switch, I'm hyped for those consoles. And so that gives you guys a little idea of why I bought these different consoles and just what made them special to me. But I would like to know from you guys, and you guys can thank JRman331 for suggesting this question. What got you guys into certain consoles? What made you buy a certain console? Was there a certain game that came out? Was it the commercials? Maybe a buddy had it? What made you guys get into these consoles? I'd love to hear your guys' answers to these questions. You guys can answer it as a video response, or you can answer it as a comment, or you can do both. And remember, if you do one or the other, or you do both, you can get up to 2 entries into that contest that I'll be holding at the end of this series. I got several different prizes planned, games and things I want to give out, so keep an eye out for that. Again, I want to thank you guys so much for your participation. You guys are awesome. Take care. Have an amazing day. Sleepy. We'll see you guys next time.